Very much, Sherry. The next person that we're going to hear from is retired Lieutenant Commander Joe Eastman, and he was in the U.S. Navy. The one thing we can say about Joe is it's not enough that he spent a lifetime in the military serving us, but he now spends an awful lot of his time serving others in the military. So let's give a big hand for Joe Eastman.
Thank you very much. Before I start, I just want to tell everybody, please remember our homeless veterans out there. Chris Hill and I, who I'm going to have the pleasure to introduce, have been doing some things for this last 7 or 8 months. And if you get in front of any type of elected official, please remind them our homeless vets need to be taken care of. Thank you. Now, I have an honor and a privilege right now, and Chris would probably never believe that I would say this, but I get to introduce a guy that I consider a very, very good friend. And this guy wears a lot of hats. He's a husband, he's a father, he's an Army veteran, he's an advocate, and most of all, he's a humanitarian. Whenever we vets need something, have a cause, whatever, Chris is right there. All you have to do is call. All right? As I said, Chris is an Army veteran. He was with Bravo Company, 1st of the 9th Infantry Manchu. And I have to tell you, Chris and I do a lot of things together. And as important as it is to be able for me to call Chris a colleague, it's so much more to be able to call Chris Hill a friend. And I'd like to introduce to you the Executive Director of Gathering of Eagles, Chris Hill.
Good afternoon. I get asked to speak quite frequently, maybe because I never know when to shut up. But one thing I always do when I start these sorts of things is to say, as I'm looking out in this crowd, can I see a show of hands of all the active duty veterans that have served? Please, raise your hands. Let me say to each and every one of you, welcome home. Your service means the world to me. I am so proud to be a number of things, but nothing more proud than to be your brother in arms. Today's the 4th of July, and we all know that to most of the country that means cookouts and barbecues and a white sale at Macy's. But to those of us who have served, it means something else. It means we're part of something that's an unbroken line back to General George Washington. During the Revolutionary War, General Washington went through some really tough times. We all know the story of Valley Forge. Most of his officers went home. General Washington stayed with his troopers through that cold, cold winter. And when they were digging the trenches into New York, General Washington went down into the ditch and took his turn digging, because he knew there was something more important than being a general. He knew what was important was that the United States is not a nationality, it's not a creed, it definitely isn't a race. What it is an idea. It's an idea that we as Americans carry with us everywhere we go. You could live in any other country in the world for your whole life, and if you weren't born there, you'd never be one of them. All we ask is that you come here, sign the guest book, and you're with us. It's us against the world. This is a great, eloquent, wonderful country, and the best country ever to grace the face of the planet. We are the good guys. And the reason we're the good guys is because of that unbroken string from Valley Forge, through the dark days of the first invasion of the War of 1812, through the Civil War where brother fought brother, into World War I, Belleau Woods, the Somme, World War II, Omaha Beach, Tarawa, Okinawa. They never gave up. The American serviceman knew that he was fighting for an idea. In Korea, we had Pork Chop Hill and Chosin Reservoir. In Vietnam, the Ai Drang Valley, Khe Sanh, and Hamburger Hill. Since then, the United States military has done a number of humanitarian issues around the world. We've supported typhoon victims, earthquake victims. We've diverted forces to get to the place where people needed food and water, and we defended those people from roving gangs. Nothing makes me prouder than to stand in front of a group of people and say that I'm a proud veteran of the United States Army. There's one thing, though. The World War II generation is famously called the greatest generation. Take nothing away from them. My grandfather was with Merrill's Marauders in World War II. But my personal heroes, my gold standard for warriors, have always been the Vietnam vets. When I joined the Army in 1985 at 17, they were my senior NCOs, they were my battalion commanders, and they kept me alive. It's a debt I cannot repay. So, I'm a little older now. They don't need guys like me to carry a rifle anymore. But luckily for us, we have the next great generation. The generation who have fought in Afghanistan and Iraq. The generation who stood in 130-degree heat, sweating, while some would say their mission wasn't worthy. Well, we never said that, and we have never forgotten it. And something that has been a great honor to me is to meet a number of those men, and yes, now, women. Because the United States military now has a group of women that I finally call the Lionesses. They're out on the hunt. They're carrying weapons, they're returning fire with the enemy, and they can prove that our girls can beat their guys. Our girls are better men than they are.